All right. So, yeah, you're listening to NYC Radio Live and WKCR FM. I have the honor of speaking with the great Kayhan Kalhor, all the way from Tehran. I'm up in Woodstock in
Thank
my
you. The
study
honor is
here.
mine.
Yeah, man. Well, so I caught a very intimate show that you did, probably much more intimate than you're used to, which was the one up in Saugerties that Isabel Socker
Yes,
put together.
yes, that's correct. Yes, that's a while ago. I think a few months ago.
Yeah, I had to say I that was one of the most moving performances I've ever witnessed. I was just my wife too. We were just blown away. I mean,
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
yeah.
I'm glad you liked it.
So I mean, you seem like someone tone wise. You don't seem like someone who's kind of like really coming at it from just the instrument itself. I don't know. It seems like you're going for something deeper than just like, say hitting the notes. Like how do you like develop maybe on the kamancheh particularly, like what was your influence on just the sound, the tone?
Well, it's a long story. The sound of Comanche by itself, it's very um, mesmerizing, and it, takes a listener because it just comes out of this box that's covered with a piece of sheepskin, and it gives it some kind of quality of human voice, maybe warmer or something. But the discussion of sound, it's always been very, very important for me because as you start as a child, and as you grow older, I think the technical aspect of the things go away, and you just do what you wanted to do as a young musician, and then the sound becomes more and more important. And I think I'm 60 years old now, so I think I'm at that stage that I could really live with the sound, and the sound becomes the central issue of what I do. And I don't know how to explain it. It's just when you're there, you're experienced musician. You're just satisfied, or your soul is satisfied with just an open note. You don't have to play a lot or do a lot of fast notes or technical things, but that open note can do it for you. So it just uh I think, yeah, the depth is just goes further as you age with music and live with music, and the music becomes a part of your system, and that sound actually becomes the most essential part of your playing or producing music.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real like a breath, which is unusual for a string instrument to me. Like
Definitely.
eyes closed, it could be a ney or it could be some other kind of wind instrument.
Right. It's a combination of things. It's just this piece of skin. It's the way you produce the sound, and probably the way that the bow is struck on the strings, and that sound.
Mhm.
It's not a very pure, sound without harmonics. One of the important things in producing that sound is to try to maintain all of the harmonics that the instrument makes. Nowadays, a lot of maybe younger players, they're trying to hide those harmonics and cover it. Actually, they put a piece of cloth under the bridge, or not on the violin, because you have a wooden soundboard, and that's not the story there. But the way you bow and you way you allow the harmonics to speak, um, and work for your phrases and the kind of scale you play. And I think that's a very essential part of producing that sound for me.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of I don't know how much you listen to old time jazz like Ben Webster or some of these
Oh,
Lester,
definitely. Yes,
but they
yes.
have that, and it
Yeah,
gives.
exactly.
Mhm.
Which is kind of unwanted today, and whether or not we get used to that sound, and plus the analog recording that gives you that hidden compression there, and the ear gets used to it. And I think I'm crazy about that kind of sound, that old school sound, and kamancheh allows you to kind of produce that if you work on it.
Yeah. I used to hang with some Kurdish musicians, and one of them played the Turkish kamancheh, which I guess is a smaller kind of thing. And he told me that it's a shepherd, that it was a shepherd's instrument. Is it the same with is that a history that you've heard?
The kamancheh.
Yeah, yeah. Originally, that's what he told me. Their little Turkish kamancheh was.
Well, maybe in that, in Anatolia, but it's a so widespread, used instrument. So
Mhm.
we use it in art music and, different regions in Iran. They use it as a folk instrument.
Yeah,
And in Anatolia, I think they use it as a folk instrument as well.
yeah,
But this is an instrument that has traveled eastward to China and Japan, and then westward to Europe. The ancestor of Rebecca, Viola da Gamba, and everybody just used it the way they wanted and changed the instrument the way they wanted. But this is definitely the oldest bowed instrument that existed.
wow. Yeah, and the folk traditions of Kurdish music, th- that goes way, way, way back, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, that's one of the oldest kinds of music. Yes.
yeah.
And this instrument is perhaps older. It just it's I think is it's probably the first bowed instrument that ever came to existence. And this is the name suggests that as well, because the theory I have, Kamancheh in Farsi means little hunting bow. So
Oh,
yeah, so if we were suppose, as musicologists suggest, that the human voice was the first instrument, and then the percussions, that came to existence by accident, because some people, try to dry a piece of skin, skin of animal that they hunted, and then it just became over dried, and it made they could actually tap on it and make a sound. So this is how the percussions came to existence. And then, wind instruments, that by accident again, the wind going through a piece of, a kind of tube-like wood that was dried and made a sound. And so these are all theories. And then plucked instruments, the instruments that had chords, one or two, simple instruments without fingering and everything. And then those plucked instruments became bowed instruments. Somebody used the bow, hunting bow, on a string and made it sound. And they said, "Wow, this plucked instrument can make a sound that way as well." So, and kaman is hunting bow in Farsi, in Persian. And then obviously that the old hunting bows were large and very tall as a human, that used it. So they had to make a little version of it to play the instrument. So that's the little hunting bow. So this suggests that this is, if not the first one, but one of the oldest ones that was played by a bow.
wow. Yeah, and if it's hunting bow, then it could be before dawn of civilization. It could be, people are travel, hunter-gatherers rather than
Could be, yes, yes,
necessarily
yes. These are all
who
theories,
knows?
but it just
Yeah.
makes sense, and the
Yeah.
name suggests that.
Interesting. Wow. And so, I mean, within this the traditional styles of music that you play, there's this folk tradition, and then there's also you're saying it's a fine art. So there's a court tradition that kind of
Yes,
interacts.
definitely. Definitely.
Hmm.
Court music, art music, and then, uh, well, the other theory is that, all this different parts of the country, or different parts of Central Asia, then any city that became the capital city, all the folk musicians actually went to the bigger city in search of employment. And this is how the court musicians actually came, across and found employment, and found sponsors. The art music that we speak of now is definitely uh, formed by different kinds of folk music from around the country.
Wow. I read a book recently and interviewed the guy named Joe Boyd, who's a very interesting music producer. But
Yes, I
yeah.
know him.
Oh, you know him? Yeah.
Yes,
His
I
his
do.
book is amazing, life-changing.
Yes, yes.
His new one. It's called it's a Paul Simon line. Anyway, um, I felt like his kind of underlying theory was that music is kind of like the synapses of culture, and it makes
Yes.
these connections. And that kind of description that, the early courts and the early cities would draw the folk musicians from all corners. It
That's
makes
exactly the
sense. Yeah.
theory, yes. And that has happened everywhere, and that's how art music or court music came to existence. And then more serious musicians get hired, and they try to find some sort of maybe alignment, new kinds of playing, and then more intelligent ways to write the music down or remember it, and compose songs. And definitely, that the folk material was the basis for that.
Yeah. And so you got a pretty early start musically?
I started when I was 5. I played by myself. It just, my brother had a old santur, a dulcimer, at home, and then I started on that. I didn't play kamancheh in the beginning, and then my parents, realized that I love music, because, that's, apparently I was doing something wrong, right. So, and then they asked me if I want to go to music school, and I want to play an instrument, and I said yes. So, back then, Persian violin in Iran was very popular. So I started on Persian violin, and I had a very, very good teacher, Mr. Ahmad Mohajer, who's not with us, but he was very old back then. Um, but he was one of the important pupils of Ustad Sabah, a very famous musician who educated a lot of musicians and of composers for the next generation. So I was fortunate enough to just by accident, go to him and studying. And then after a few years, I on TV, I saw Ustad Bahari, maybe the last Kamancheh player back then, because Kamancheh wasn't a popular instrument. Probably one or two important players used to play it then, and not no, young generation players. And I fell in love with that sound, and I decided to play Kamancheh. But we lived out, in Western Iran, and I didn't have a teacher. So I tried to get my violin lessons, and then, play Kamancheh on my own. And that's what happened. And then when we moved to Tehran, I had other teachers to play the kamancheh, and by the time I was 12, 13, I became very serious about what I wanted to do, and I played primarily on kamancheh.
So you basically, in a certain sense, you were kind of discovering your own technique right from the beginning, I suppose, on the kamancheh, if you didn't have a practice.
By listening, not on my own totally, but by listening to older masters, older recordings, and then a lot of Ustad Bahari that I told you about.
Mhm.
And then I had the honor to meet him later on and take lessons from him. But the Comanche repertoire wasn't so great, wasn't so widespread. So this was almost a forgotten instrument, and there was a gap of 40, 50 years that nobody actually played the instrument. And then only him played this instrument. And I was fortunate enough that, he existed. Otherwise, you know, I would wander around, how to play this instrument and what was the common vocabulary and, or ornamentations and other things on this instrument.
Wow. Yeah, these guys used to play me, those musician friends, the what's his name? Tamburi Cemil Bey or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, in Turkey.
Turkey,
Yeah.
yeah, the early,
Yeah.
I
He
guess
was
that.
probably one of the last people who played his instrument as well. Yeah.
Wow. And maybe this is one of those kind of like questions so hard to answer because it's like, oh, how did you know when you fell in love or something like that? But do you remember that exact moment that you heard the heard the Comanche at that age and
Yeah,
why it's affected you? Yeah.
I actually remember that. It's that low sound that he produces and produced because he's not alive anymore. But he had an amazing sound and very, very special sound. And that low sound that just got me. And I tried to play Comanche, right after that, and I'm still playing it after 50 years.
Yeah. And you do use extended techniques and stuff that probably others had not been
Yes, of
used, right?
course. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because, I believe, we come from, a tradition that is very ancient in terms of, wisdom, poetry, music, literature, and anything, architecture, of course. But in order to maintain that continuity, one should think of speaking that language in a modern way, and these traditions have to change according to each generation in order to survive. Otherwise, they would be dead traditions, and they go out of existence. So I think that's a very essential way to keep those traditions. We speak English now. 6th century ago, it wasn't spoken this way. So the languages change, and the way we live changes. But certain changes in tradition, they have to um, you know kind of change themselves, or we make a change to live with it, and because we love them and we don't want them to die. So this musical tradition is a very popular one now. And a lot of young generation musicians, maybe millions, play different Persian classical instruments, including the kamancheh. We have like hundreds of thousands of kamancheh players now. So what were playing, it's certainly not what they played, 200 years ago, but it's very much related, and it's translated to our lives today. And with respect to the older tradition, we have uh, to try to find a new language to speak it for this generation.
Yeah, and you've had a lot of
So it was necessary,
Mm,
changing techniques and, adding other things, other elements in phrasing, in technique, like pizzicatos, tapping, all these things. It's necessary to use those ones to broaden up the vocabulary of the instrument and, make it listenable for this generation.
mm. Yeah, it's not frozen away as a
No, it's
museum
not.
piece. Yeah.
No, it definitely not. Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, I was thinking, another way that you've kind of expanded the audience is with a lot of really successful collaborations, and I'm thinking, I
Thank
particularly,
you.
yeah, I really loved the Ghazal project with Shujat Khan, and
Yes, that was back in late 90s.
mm,
And yeah, that by itself was a successful project. And I'm very happy I did that. That was the first non-traditional and kind of what they call fusion today
mm,
project that I did. And then after that, I did a lot of them, but that was the first one I did. And it was successful because both of us wanted to do that. And we both came from two different musical traditions that were somewhat related, but in the same time different. And we both wanted to commit ourselves to produce that. And it was a very good experience.
yeah, I'm very interested by how they're related. One thing I do is I produce a music festival in New York. It's called Raga's Live Festival. It's a 24-hour music festival, and we have.
I've been there.
Oh, you've been there.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm praying that you'll be on stage next chance we can get you one of these Octobers.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you. It's fun to be there as listener as well. So
yeah. Oh, that's
yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So this year we're gonna one of our featured artists is the Sami brothers. They are a Qawwali ensemble who's
Yes.
traced back, back to the beginning, 800 years ago. And I was
Yeah.
interviewing them in preparation, and they were talking about the role of I forgot his name, but there's one of the prime progenitors, inventors of basically raga. Um, he was coming in with a really large Persian influence and
Yes.
and Maqam itself. And so I'm
Yes.
really interested. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. If you talk to older North Indian
Mhm.
musicians, they credit Persian music and Persian musicians and poets a lot, and they think we share a lot of material between us, Persian music and Northern Indian music. And there were a number of instruments and musical, compositional forms that went there from Persia, like Qawwali,
Mhm.
and instruments like sitar, like tabla, and they credit a lot of it to Persian traditional music. So there is a big, familiarity. I always say that they're like two twin children that were raised in different families. So they had a lot in common, but different accents and different ways of producing sound. But they both heavily rely on improvisation.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. So that makes it very challenging and very interesting to mix these two very related kinds of music together.
So in that collaboration, were there any ragas that jumped out at you and you'd say, "Oh, okay, that's similar to this
Of
particular
course, yeah, yeah,
Maqam"?
yeah, yeah. We played yeah. Shujat used to play this and that, ragas, and then we had the same makams in Persian music. So we chose those ones and improvised on them. Very simple,
Mhm.
nothing complex, but it just developed to something interesting. and something that didn't exist before, and new accent that wasn't very North Indian or Persian or vice versa.
And so I read that you made your way to Rome to study music, and that
Yes.
you went by foot.
Well, yeah, that it's a long story, but yes, the answer is yes.
I mean that could be a book or a movie or I mean
Well, being born in Iran, after the and then, the revolution happened, and the war, we went through, Iranian people in general, we went through a lot of hardship. And as a young musician, I had to choose what I wanted to do. So, that was inevitable. And I took the chance, and here I am. Mhm.
but you're I mean you're just walking with your instrument and picking
Yeah, and a
it up
backpack.
along the way. I mean
Not really. No, no, no. Didn't work. I had some money with me when I left, so just wanted to mostly learn, and just try to go to music schools, and to enroll in a music school and to learn, as any young person would do, just in search of, better future and grow as a musician.
and then so when you showed up there was what was your experience when you arrived to Rome? Was it as you were
Well,
looking for
yeah,
expect?
but I went to Turkey, I lived in Turkey for 9 months. I went to Romania. I went to former Yugoslavia, the parts that are Serbia and Bosnia, today. So a lot of, and a lot of different parts of the world. And then it wasn't that I just, went to Italy at the first place. It happened during 3 years. It didn't happen overnight. So
Wow.
it took a lot of time to be there. And
Yeah.
then I went to Canada and studied music, in Ottawa and Carleton University, got my degree there, and then moved to New York, and, just everywhere, sort of kind of citizen of the world,
Yeah.
and still that way, actually.
Still getting around.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. I mean, it seems that's like a that journey through Turkey and Hungary, and that's not dissimilar to kind of the long trip that the Roma people took um, from
Um,
Rajasthan up
A
into.
part of it was, because they went through Persia to actually Turkey and Romania. I went to that part, and then and northern Italy as well. But they went into Spain, which I didn't. So I sort of took that trip, but I wasn't a Roma person. So yeah, just in search of music. Yes,
Wow, what a journey.
yes.
So, where's in terms of performing, where's like your heart at for is it really just going up there and being as close to pure improvisation as possible, or is it being kind of rooted in particular folk music or creating new stuff?
What I like to do is, solo or duo improvisation. And that's where my heart is. And of course, I have other projects, every now and then I team up with another musician or a trio, a jazz trio, for example, or Western classical quartet or octet, so or I'm commissioned to write a piece for Philharmonic Orchestra, and all sort of things. But what I really like to do is to play solo improvisations, long ones.
Yeah. And how is that evolved over time, your improvisations?
I think the way we play and we learn music is to memorize tunes, memorize melodies, and these are traditional melodies that we call avaz or radif or whatever. We have to, as students, we have to memorize these, and these are the basis for improvisations. But what I did and I'm trying to do these days is to get really far from those and just you know um, try to choose a mode, and that's it. I use less and less of those melodies. During my career, I traveled to different parts of Iran. When I came back after 10 years after my immigration, um, and traveled to different, east, west, different parts, and learned, in a shallow way, not in a very deep way. Try to learn folk music, folk melodies, and composed works based on that. So I'm actually mixing a lot of folk elements to my traditional music, which was forbidden, back in those days when I started. It was a no thing, so this is not the right thing. But nowadays it's fashionable, everybody's doing it because in a way it's going back to the source. And what we do is the changed version of what they do. So it's nice to go to the raw version and start learning it and process it in a different way
Hmm.
and present it as art music. In a way, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew Randy Weston, the jazz pianist, but he was making the
No,
argument that, at least in terms of composition, and maybe just in general, that one really you can't top folk music. And I've always thought about that a lot in terms of the
I believe that. I second that. Yes. I think because folk music is much older than art music. This is what I think. I'm not saying that, this is what it is and there is no other ways. I think folk music started, and existed a lot longer than art music and court music and other forms. And it's pure. And then, in one given area in the world, doesn't matter if it's in Europe, it's in Iran, it's in North Africa, in North India, doesn't matter what part of the world, but you have certain songs that people know and folk musicians know. So maybe these are like 100 songs or 150 songs or whatever the repertoire is, but I believe that through thousands of years, these are the best melodies that existed, and that's why they're preserved. And that's why they're so beautiful everywhere around the world. When you listen to folk music, it just, they're just gorgeous. And the melodies that were not that strong, were forgotten, and the best ones were memorized and exist today. So there is a reason for that. It's just purification of beauty, that happens in folk music. So whenever we go back to folk music as an art musician, we don't lose anything. We just gain, and we learn, and we recycle that beauty, again, and learn from it. And I definitely think that folk music has a lot to offer. And if I've seen musicians during my career that they kind of look down upon folk music, or they think it's less expensive or less worthy. I don't know how to put it, less respectful towards it. But I definitely think that it's totally vice versa. And folk musicians are our forefathers. No matter how advanced in terms of technique and knowledge and phrasing we get, they're the masters, and we have to still learn from them. So I definitely second that opinion.
The other interesting thing about that is it's that process that you're saying of almost survival of the fittest in terms of the melodies. It's not the musicians deciding, right? It's the folk
No, it's
themselves. Yeah.
it's the people, the listeners itself, musicians, because this is the kind of music that we have. We have different functions for it. So it's used in weddings, in funerals, in whatever work music, whatever social function there is, and it's not difficult uh, to choose the best ones, and the ones that people like and dance to or sing with, all these things. So it just I believe the most beautiful melodies are preserved for a reason, and that's what folk music is at a given time. It might have been different, or with different songs, in 100 years ago or 200 years ago, but what we have today in different musical traditions as folk music is highly sophisticated, and it exists because of a reason.
Wow. Well, I could keep talking to you. I mean, it's really
Thank you.
fascinating, and yeah, and I'm excited. The concert's coming up in Town Hall quite soon.
Yes,
We're gonna let everybody
I'm
know.
excited too. Yeah, it's been a long time that since I played in New York. Well, I had a show with Brooklyn Rider, but that was a different show because it was based on mixing up a Western quartet and a kamancheh and percussion, different setting and different kind of music. But I haven't played traditional music in New York for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Don't
So
ask me why, but just it just happened.
well,
Yeah,
it'll happen at the right time. So I'm super excited. I'm sure.
me too. Thank you.
Yeah, and great to connect.
Thank you.